Hey, it's Adam here, and you're watching The Culture Hack, where we're talking about how to create engaged workspaces that unlock the potential of your teams and drive your business forward in ways you've never seen. So stay tuned. Hello, and welcome to The Culture Hack. Today we are in studio, which is a first for the show. I am here with Heather Andrews, which is super exciting. Heather is a storytelling strategist and publisher. And if you missed last episode, we were talking about taking lessons from healthcare and applying it to business and what that means. But today, we're going to talk about publishing and books and storytelling.
Love it. It's a much better topic.
Fantastic. I could just see your face light up. So tell us a little bit about your publishing world and what that looks like.
The publishing world, I come out of healthcare, and the publishing world really just landed literally in my lap.
Okay.
Right? So 9 years ago, restructured from healthcare management. I was thinking I'm never going back into management and I'm not going to work full time for anyone. I need something different, and I started over at 45, literally. And so I believe the biggest piece of that is that I stepped into a new realm, and I went into a Womanition event and invited by someone else, and I saw inspiration. I saw hope. I saw women who had been through difficult times, whether it had been a career change, corporate, and they opened up their own businesses. And that day I met a woman by the name of Deanne Randrow, and she was an ex-paramedic, and she had something at the time called Holistic Earth out of Edmonton, and she had invited me in to write about my experience about being a woman in a business, because I'd had a business in my 30s, years gone by, and she invited me to write in a compiled book. And that, so self-publishing and writing a chapter, it was all new and foreign, and I was like, woo, I get to be an author, woo, yay. And I met a lot of fascinating women in that book, and I told my story, and it really did change something. It changed my inward dialogue post my restructuring. It changed, and I learned that I could actually have a story to tell. And then I moved into the publisher, that the self-publishing coach at that time had invited me to write a book of my own, or compile a book of co-authors. And I chose to go with compiling a book of co-authors because I wanted really to have people read this in short stories and know that there was impact that they could learn from just regular folk. And I did that, and that book was called Obstacles Equal Opportunities. Okay. And it went to #1 bestseller, and 23 people came together and told their story. And really, my publishing company was born. And then people started seeking out how they could publish with me and how I could help them. And that's really how my book publishing company came to be. It was by default, but I chose to share my story. And 9 years later, and 350 authors later, and a whole bunch of bestsellers and all of the things, it's still been the thing that stayed with me. And I love watching the transformation of people when they share their chapter, whether they write a solo book, and really when they dig into their experience and they come out the other side of it and they go, wow, that was pretty cool. But people say a lot of times that they can't write, or what's their mom or their dad gonna say, or their best friend, but the thing that I can tell you is that's why we have a team of editors. We make you look good, and we make you sound professional, but we also keep your voice. And the beautiful piece in that is that, so people can write, and people are held in awe when they write a book, whether it be a nonfiction story, a business book, any type of journal. People are seen in awe, and I've seen it time and time again. When people post their book cover, they're like, oh my gosh, people come out of the woodwork, and you realize that you've got engagement on your Facebook that you never knew you had.
Yeah, oh, amazing.
So it's just it's a transformational process, and it's best day of Christmas is when a book launches and it goes #1. Like, it's better than Christmas.
Wow, better than Christmas.
Better than Christmas.
Well, that is exciting, because I'm actually working with Heather right now on a collab called The Culture Revolution.
Yes.
And it's all about culture and engagement in business. And I just submitted my draft for my chapter a couple days ago, but I'll tell you this, I sat on it for like a week. Like, it's been done for a week. I just couldn't send it until finally Had to.
Yeah.
So it's nerve-wracking, right? Telling your story, like
It is, because it's a degree of vulnerability, right? And in our world today, like, vulnerability is accepted, but it's also, once you share a piece of yourself, you create the relatability. And I always call this the 3 R's, and it's relatability, when you share that piece of yourself, to create the trust factor and open that conversational dialogue. And everybody says, well, I don't have a story. Well, if you're breathing on this planet, you have a story, because we all have one, or many. And that becomes that relevance piece, our unique experience, our unique wisdom, our unique knowledge base. Because no two experiences, you might take a divorce and 2 people can walk it, and they're going to come out totally different people with totally different viewpoints on how it went for them. And that's a pretty common thing, but it's a common life experience, but everybody's going to have their own life experience. And that's just the way story goes. And that's the most beautiful thing. But once people step into their story, whether it be that chapter or they do a solo book, they become a resource for someone else. And that's why I'm so excited about your Culture Revolution, what you and Caitlin are doing, because the people that are writing in this book, the co-authors, they all come from such different walks of life and with such unique experience bases. And no one person has had the same definition of culture. And it also, when I was coaching them to writing their story, it was like at every level, it doesn't matter whether you've written 20 times or whether you're just starting in your company or whether you've been in your business for 27 years. It was interesting to me because people were asking, like, well, what do I write about? and you had to see people in their, you have to see people. And I think that's my gift, is I see people and I see their story and I see the lessons that they have. And it's just pulling it out of them. But yet, having said that, I need somebody to do that for me when I write.
Yeah.
And so often we hear people, and this is one of the things I think we talked about in my Empire Authors Academy, was she said, I had an aha moment, one of the co-authors, and she said, I couldn't talk about it. But sometimes writer's block it's just not meant to be said yet. Or even though that piece that we don't necessarily talk about, it might be the piece that needs to be heard the most. But yet that when you said that you held off on it, until you sat down and wrote, you didn't have all your divine downloads yet. And so when you sat down and wrote, you had the story hovering, you thought about it, and then you could write it. And sometimes it just takes time to percolate a little bit, percolate, something like that. It just takes time to percolate the story. And so when you have a block, you go, yeah, okay, maybe, okay, I'm just gonna table that and move on to the other thing.
Well, I do, from my experience, I had kind of in my mind a vague sort of idea of what I might want to write about on this topic. But then we had our conversation and you really encouraged me to explore, like, the why do I even care about this stuff? Which, interesting question. I hadn't really pondered that in great detail. So I think the end result was much more a story about my, a real story about why I got into this kind of stuff. And the second thing I'll say is, from my experience, when I started writing, I sat down and wrote the thing in one sitting, and it was, once you start going, it is amazing what comes out, right? I mean, the final draft didn't, it got torn apart and put back together, but still, it's amazing. It's surprising what comes out of the basement.
Exactly.
Right?
And I think the other thing too, when you sit down and you actually ask somebody, when they come to me and they say, I think I've been told I have a story in me, and then I say, well, why do you want to write this book? And they're like, well, and the first answer is, I want to help someone walk through something in their life. Okay. And then what do you want the book to do for you? Like, what do you want the book to do for your business? What do you want the book to do for you as an author? What do you want it to do as the reader? And what do you want it to do for the world? Like, think about all of those things, because they're all things that contribute into writing the book. And even though with good intention, you have, as an author, you want to write the book and you have a job to fulfill for that reader, but you're really writing it for the reader. It can be a releasing process for you, and putting it out there and creating the space for other things in your world. And you might want to use it as a lead gen or a lead generation or build a brand around your business, or whatever you want to use it for. But asking yourself those deep questions is really clarifying what the book becomes, the road that the book is going to take along with you, because the book has a trajectory as well. And I think that the Culture Revolution book that you and Caitlin are compiling, and we're helping you publish it, but it's going to have a journey all of its own based on the individual that, because some of the dynamics of the chapters are being used for different reasons, but ultimately it's to bring awareness to culture, and that we all need to have a culture, and we're all part of a culture because it's born in our DNA. and it really defines our upbringing. It defines the DNA of a company. It defines, when somebody comes in and they don't necessarily know the industry, but they have to learn the industry based on someone else's vision. And this is really all of the different chapters, conversations that are going to happen in the Culture Revolution book. Okay. And I know all the stories.
Well, I like it. Maybe that's a reason why this topic culture is so hard, because everyone has a different definition.
Well, exactly.
So I'm super intrigued to see what all, the 14 people, the different points of view and the different things there, because I know when we first kicked off, when we first started, almost every single person, when they saw like the titles and the histories and the stories of everyone else who was collabing, had this imposter syndrome, like, well, I don't know if I even make sense that I'm here, but this is my story, right?
Yeah.
But everybody felt like that.
Yeah.
So it was really, really neat to see everybody kind of.
I think, and I think it's interesting because if somebody was like, well, I want to talk to you because I don't want to create the same story as someone else. And there's overlap, but that overlap in some of the chapters gives evidence that it's important. And so if one person is saying it and one person knows it, it's a topic that you got to discuss. And that's the beautiful part about all of this, is that no one chapter is ever alike. And some of the co-authors are sharing their story. Other people are giving more lesson based. Other people are giving resources and how those resources changed the culture. And I think that there's going to be such power in the book that is rolling out in May timeframe, Culture Revolution, and it's just going to have a life of its own, and it's just going to take on a life of its own, because it's bringing an awareness to the table that needs to come. Because our world is changed, period. Leadership in any organization, and as the generations also have come up, it's just not the same as it was in a baby boomer generation, and those conversations need to be had. And that's why it's kind of, it's not a revolution in a good way, because it's bringing the awareness to the table. But that's just publishing in general. That's right. Bringing and some of the concepts aren't new that are being written, but they're coming at it from an angle of that person's perspective and putting it on the table, maybe in somebody else and that another person can jive with.
Amazing. I love that. Well, and I think, if there's anyone out there thinking about writing a book, but it's been this daunting thing hanging over their head for years, and a collab is a pretty good way to dip your toe in and kind of get yourself, kind of break the ice, so to speak, right?
Yep.
So
I call the collaboration books or compilation books the segue into the world of publishing.
Okay.
Because it's a way of taking 2,500 words to 3,500 words and putting it into an experience and learning how to publish. I do my collabs a little differently, because I have been a part of collaborations where the chapter goes off into the abyss and I've never seen it until it gets launched, and I'm like, well, I didn't even get a final approval over what they did to my book or what they did to my chapter. Whereas we work one-to-one. So every single person, whether it's an author or a co-author, gets a one-to-one experience with our editing team. And I can say that I have excellent editors and that work alongside me, and graphic designers, and we really are an agency that really offers the full experience from idea to implementation in a group setting through our academy, or the one-to-one experience in Get You Visible.
Okay.
So
amazing.
Yeah.
And if somebody hears this and wants to write a book or talk about publishing, how do they get a hold of you?
Go to the website getyouVisible.com or EmpireAuthorsAcademy.com. Both have a link there that you can book a call with me, and I just love connecting with people and hearing how I can help them move forward.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Hey, thanks for watching The Culture Hack. Do you want to chat culture and engagement? Give us a call and come on the show.